Hi, I'm Shayna.
Hi, I'm Shira from How to ABA. So what we do in How to ABA is share our programs, share our resources with our community. We share it on our blog, we share our program descriptions. And a very common question we ask is all about the prompting and how to incorporate the prompting, why there aren't necessarily prompts written in some of our steps. So we thought that we would discuss that. So let's first define what is the prompting and what promptings are we even talking about?
For sure. So a prompt comes right after you give the SD. SD is an instruction, right? Your discriminative stimulus. So I'm saying to Shira, pretend it's a receptive ID program, and I say, point to the apple. Okay, so my prompt would come in between my instruction and her behavior. So if I say point to the apple and go ahead and try it, right? I'm going to prompt her to the apple. That's a prompt. So prompt comes between the instruction and her response. We can also do an error correction, which would be just after the response. Probably looks the same as a prompt, but it's an error correction because it's after the response. So if I said point to apple, she points to something else, and then I do something like this. That's error correction, not a prompt. Same sort of thing. I'm doing the same behavior. It just comes after her responding, though. So when we're talking about prompting, it's not really written into our programs or most of our programs. And the reason why is because we want our learners to move quickly. And if we write in every single prompt procedure, don't get me wrong, we might have to do that for some of our beginner learners and some of our learners who take a few extra trials to learn things. If we write prompts in for everyone and our mastery criteria is 80% for 2 consecutive sessions, it really slows down the teaching. If you've got a faster learner and you can fade your prompts within the session, then that student can essentially learn that teaching step without the prompts within a session or 2. So that's why we don't write it in, but by all means, some people do hand write it in or type it in afterwards because we can allow for that in the Word document. But really, what do we consider a prompt and why do we do it? And which prompts do we choose when we are choosing prompts? The biggest thing we say is least intrusive, but most effective. So what does that mean? So pretend I have a receptive label ID and I say, Shira, show me the shoes. And she goes to show me the shoes, but she's about to error. I could take her hand and I could move it over to the shoes. Now, I'm pretty intrusive when I'm touching her hands. I'm not hurting her by any means, but it's a physical prompt. Physical prompts are pretty intrusive, especially if you've got a therapist who doesn't really have the art of prompting down pat and they may grab her hand a little bit rougher or it looks rough to an outside person. Is there another prompt that's less intrusive than that, but still as effective? Right? So if you go down the prompt hierarchy, you could do something like a physical prompt. So I'm going to physically prompt her, or a partial physical, which might just be maybe at her elbow or her wrist. Another prompt might be even just a model prompt, right? So going down the list, it could be, hey, look, this is the shoes, and showing her. Okay, try again. Which one's the shoes? And that time she gets it, right? Or it might be a gesture prompt. So I might have to say, show me the shoes. And then she can do it that way. I didn't even touch her there, right? That was pretty effective, but it wasn't intrusive. Another one could be a positional prompt. So I might actually have, the shoes up here or closer to her if this was down on the table and saying, show me the shoes. And she shows the shoes that way. Okay, so that's the prompting hierarchy. So again, with a receptive ID program, it would be a full physical prompt would be pretty intrusive, but if that's all that works, that's all that works. Going down, it would be a partial physical prompt. A model prompt, meaning, hey, this is the ball, try again. That would be that, or a gesture prompt. And I typically am able to just use a gesture prompt or a positional prompt and fade that back.
So the reason it's not written in the steps is that, and this is where your clinical decision making comes in as the person overseeing the program, but it's not written there because if you can get your learner over a few days with just some really good teaching, some really good error correction, if you can get them to master that step just with fading the prompts within, then that would be the goal. If you're seeing the data say that it's not happening and just fading the prompts within isn't enough, then you might want to include data on a certain prompt. So then you might include a gesture prompt or a text prompt and have them master that for a couple days and then remove the prompt systematically. But knowing when you need to systematically introduce the prompts is really a very subtle art almost. And that's why it's not a one size fits all type of thing, but understanding the prompt hierarchy separately and how to insert it into the programs is really the goal.